I just wanted to go through too and try to show the history we're taught is so skewed, and the use of propaganda and things to try to sway your understanding and your interests. Communism under Stalin killed 50-something million people, and it's probably that. From what I understand of the numbers, it's actually skewed. They're thinking it was more like 150 million, and then you have Nazism, which was 3 million. Something ridiculous. The principle I'm just trying to perpetrate here is when you look at history and how it's been set up, all political theater is, especially anything with an ism, fascism, communism, it's all the same thing with just different varying degrees. When we evolve, we don't have an overt form of belief. Belief is a form of thought. When you evolve and you're coming from your heart, everything just is. There's no overt thought about a thing. Common sense prevails. When we try to bind ourselves to a belief system or an idealism in that nature, it takes control and possesses you. You become possessed by it. It's a form of control, a constraint, restriction against free energy and free thinking. So people thinking that it's going to be this or that. Like, once we transform and you're in your heart and humanity evolves and the idiots burn, you'll see just common sense prevail, and all of that fades away. Government, mental control. All the government was supposed to be is an elected group of people under the discretion of God, who God makes sure they make the roads be paved and the electrical systems work and the weeds taken out of the sidewalk and the books bought for school and things of that nature. And speaking of school, I want to touch on this with the whole COVID bullshit. The school system, we already have in our colleges, and we've had it for probably 20 years, but I know at least a concrete decade. We've had an online lecture forum where all the children have their webcam built into their laptops, which are being provided by the schools, and they log into a virtual classroom where the teacher is present and can be seen on camera, and all the children are present, and then they also have a chat forum attached to that where they can type a little bar on the bottom of the screen, and then they can have a running dialogue in the right side of the screen or the left, or however they want to set it up. This is what needs to go on right now. First of all, this gives us some protections against infiltrator people trying to swear children. But the schools, the plan of when they open and close doesn't need to be modified or changed or doctored in any way. You're trying to break the mold of something that already exists. How we right the ship now is we simply put into place the systems required to host virtual classrooms, and then we give the families the choice. Do you want your kid to be virtual from home, as long as they're meeting the requirements as required by the curriculum and the Board of Education, as well as the Committee of Teachers and things that set the curriculum and the Board of Education's guidelines to proper thing. And then we have teachers that do virtual classes, and we have teachers that do regular classes, and the kids that want to go to regular classes can go. But we need to set this up where virtual classroom means virtual. You're there from a set time every day. You're in front of that laptop, and you're in a class. It's the same thing. You're just virtual. You do it remotely. You're seen on camera, so you're not sitting there with your cell phone in your hand or whatever else. It's actually a beautiful system, and that can work perfectly when we apply common sense as the rule of understanding here. The curriculums are set up by the Board of Education and the Department of Education. And there's teacher committees and other things that try to bring in other things or whatever they want to do. But in the dates of opening and closing are things that have always been there and do not need to be modified or tampered with in any way. Because now we're just having a breakdown of common sense here. And then we need to carry over the system that's used by the colleges for virtual remote learning. This isn't something new that's being redesigned here. The patent, the blueprint, it already exists at the state college level and the community college level. We don't need to break the mold. We need to carry over the system from the collegiate level to the secondary and elementary and middle school level. Common sense, buy the systems, do what you got to do, and bring it forth. It should have been done immediately in the course of COVID-19. This isn't something that we should be in August trying to figure out. These are systems that should have been in place a week after the tower, after COVID started. That should have been day one done. This isn't, to have an IT guy come in and set this system up is simple. It's requisitioning the equipment, the electronics, the computer equipment required, maybe possibly setting up a server and some other stuff to make it all work. But this is common sense. And it's a simple carryover. Get it done. This doesn't require discussion in multiple congressional hearings and multiple board meetings. It requires common sense. Pull the trigger and get it done. We're not going to deprive our children of the right to gain knowledge. But what we are going to do is make sure that the standards are applied and carried over. And we're going to copy the collegiate blueprint for remote learning, the virtual classroom. I have no problem with that being, that should be a choice for every family from here on out, even post-COVID-19, if they want their children to be remote learned or in school. This frees up entire burdens in budget room as well. I mean, this is a common sense thing, and it doesn't require debate. And there's not a person from the Board of Ed or the Department of Education with real degrees that would argue this fact. Get your hands on the software, do what needs to be done, set up a server room, a network, or whatever else, and get it done. It's a 1 week thing, start to finish. You take that checkbook out and watch how fast the world falls into place. This isn't about sending out bids and contracts now. Call someone, get them down there, get it done. No buddy system bullshit. Just do it. Common sense. The blueprint's there. Colleges have been using it for decades. The software's there. And it makes more sense for everybody. Oh, I'm going to log in at this time. I'm going to do this. No. You sit there from whatever time till whatever time. You do your classes and you're done. You get, as a child, you're getting something none of us got. You're on the verge of a beautiful innovation in technology and a beautiful innovation in how elementary, middle, and secondary school are applied to our youth. And that's the possibility of being remotely taught and continuing that through into the future. Because there's no reason that doesn't exist. I personally feel comfortable knowing, because I can watch what's going on. I can see what she's learning. I can visually see it. I know someone's not trying to brainwash or indoctrinate, and I hate to even put that thought out there, but there are some people with mixed alternatives, and I wouldn't be surprised if some with even the phony degrees and other things. So all I'm simply saying is incorporate the collegiate system, do it now, and that's it. Simple. It might even create more jobs, because now you'll have a teacher that teaches at the classroom and you'll have one that teaches remotely. And actually, you could even use the teacher that's teaching in the classroom as the same one that's doing the remote. All she has to do is set up a webcam and then pay attention to the chat and stuff. Include the virtual students in the regular class. It is what it is. It's not a thing that requires much mind-boggling. I would hope that the experts and professionals that teach our children can come to a consensus and an understanding amongst everyone here of how simple and beautiful and the thing that it allows us to do. There's a lot of families that do homeschooling and stuff that with that option would opt into allowing that, because they can sit there and they can watch and they know that the kids are getting what they need. And by using the collegiate system, we're not depriving the child of the socialization that they would get at normal school. We can just control the level of what goes on between the interactions with the other students. So I think that would give the people who like to homeschool a greater ability to now become part of the mainstream community, in the sense that their children would have access to remote learning at home where you could monitor what they're doing, but they'd still be able to interact online with other children. And I think that's a beautiful part of life that I think most homeschool children would say they enjoyed their homeschooling, but they missed the social interaction that they could have had of meeting children. And I think by giving them that virtual classroom and making that a possibility, continuing on forward with education, is something that's going to have to be done. There's no two ways about it. It's going to happen, and that's going to be an option. And I think everyone can come together and agree on the beauty that portrays, because it frees up entire families. I mean, you could be nomadic and be living out from park to park, or traveling into other places, and you could still be remotely connecting into your school district where your house is. So it's a beautiful thing, especially for that aspect. And I think it'll help bring into the fold some of the homeschool families who now will actually be able to let their children socialize with other children, because that's a great skill to have, especially because you'd be in a virtual classroom. So you having that control of seeing what's going on, knowing what they're being exposed to, I think it's a definite thing that we need to look into, and actually it's not even that needs to be looked at, it needs to be implemented. They need to buy the program and install it, whether or not the logistics of whether you need a server room or anything like that, but just buy what you need and do it. It's a federally or state-funded thing. I mean, the Board of Education, I think, would have to agree unanimously. That's always been something that I think was always on the background of everybody's idea, and even if you wanted to bring up the problem of, well, what do we hire a separate set of teachers to be dedicated for the homeschool? I don't even think you have to. I think you could put a webcam on the teacher and then just have her with a screen at her desk where she can see the chat and the input from the other children who are remote learn. And it puts them, because you had a screen with all the pictures with the faces and then a chat on the side. It just makes it so that you are able to interact, and the kids actually can see the other kids and they know they're getting the same education that everyone else is getting. So it's not a far-fetched thing, and it's not that hard to incorporate that into a regular classroom where there would be a webcam in the classroom and a screen that she would have the students who are remote learners and interact. It's a slight deviation from a normal syllabus or curriculum. It's just adding in a remote aspect to it, and I think it's something that people want to pussyfoot around, and nobody can come to a clear consensus on what's going on. And I think it's time that's what's going on. This should have been done day one when the schools got closed. As soon as those schools got closed, the Board of Education should have bought the Collegian software that they use for virtual classrooms, because virtual class, you log in, they can see your face, you got the whole full webcam situation going on, and a general forum for discussion. And I think we're way beyond what's supposed to go on here. So I want to put that out there, because I think that's a very important thing, and that's just common sense.